36-year-old car mechanic Rashid Waswa is taking the first of what will be many doses of medication for tuberculosis. But for him, the path to diagnosis has been different. Usually, in developing countries, it can take up to 2 months for test results to come back from the lab.
Now, if they wait for too long...
Dr. Francis Adateyu is Uganda's top TB official. He says anyone who fails to be tested or has to wait a long time for results is a walking health risk.
So that delay is one of the problems we are facing, because by that time, transmission is taking place. And it's estimated that an individual not diagnosed, not treated, will infect about 10 to 15 other clients.
But that's not the case for Waswa. He was diagnosed for TB the same day that he was tested. That's because Mulago Hospital in Kampala is one of the few locations which has a device that is being hailed as revolutionary in the fight against TB. Alfred Andama is one of the lab technicians trained to use it.
This is where we load them into the machine and it runs for the time prescribed.
It may not look like much, but this little black box, called the Gene Expert, cuts the diagnosis time for TB and the even more dangerous multidrug-resistant TB to less than 2 hours. It achieves this by analyzing the patient's DNA, looking specifically for genetic sequences that are associated with TB. All the operator has to do is treat each patient's sputum sample with chemicals to kill any TB, making it safer to handle. Transfer each sample into a special cartridge, then load the cartridges into the Gene Expert, 4 separate patient samples at a time. Less than 2 hours later, the DNA has been tested and the results are in.
And the results, as you can see in the results column, the first one is MTB detected, and the rest are MTB not detected. In the assays, you find that MTB, where MTB was detected, there was no rifampicin resistance detected.
The patient who tested positive for TB was Waswa, but he tested negative for drug resistance. If he had developed drug resistance, it would have shown clearly on the screen as RIF detected, meaning he has resistance to rifampicin, one of the key TB drugs. With 9 million new cases of TB every year, the 2-hour turnaround time has been hailed as a major milestone in TB control by the World Health Organization, which has endorsed the device. But one potential drawback is cost. Even with discounted pricing, each Gene Expert machine is around $17,000. In addition, each test costs $17 to run. That's a high price to pay for poor countries where TB is most prevalent. But Adateyu says the standard testing method, looking at sputum samples under a microscope, can also be costly.
Yeah, maybe in the interim we would need help. But I think even the ordinary sputum smear microscope is not as cheap as people imagine. Lifting a load of slides by air here costs a lot.
The Swiss-based foundation which developed the Gene Expert with American company Cepheid says the price will likely go down over time, like many new technologies. If that happens, the hope is that DNA testing for TB and other diseases will become mainstream, even in developing nations. Gary Stryker for CNN.